So I wanted to do something special this year, and I decided that I want to do what I call Fate Cember, an entire month in which I only talk about my favorite anime franchise. I hope you enjoy it. I have several interesting videos planned for this month. To kick things off though, I think it might be a good idea to explain what Fate actually is, and give a small introduction to the most important entries of the franchise. The Fate franchise started in 2004 with the visual novel Fate's Day Night. It tells the story of Emiya Shiro, your not-so-ordinary high school student who gets involved in the so-called Holy Grail War. The term war might be a bit of an overstatement. It's more of a tournament between 7 mages called Masters. Each of these masters summons a servant to fight in this war. What makes the entire thing so awesome is that these servants are the spirits of legendary heroes, and I mean actual heroes, not some made up stuff. Okay, there are a couple of those as well, but you can read about most of them in your local library, though some of them might be gender swapped. Some of them are more well known, like Hercules, while some are more obscure. I mean, sure, Cuchulainn is perhaps the best known Irish hero, but how many of you are actually familiar with Irish mythology? The Holy Grail War is a basic concept you'll find in pretty much all Fate-related works. It's the main selling point, having awesome heroes duke it out. The other selling point is its rather complex and somewhat philosophical story. Fate Night, for example, asks the question what does it mean to be a hero, and deconstructs and reconstructs the whole idea. That being said, back in the day they had to come up with another selling point. They sold it as an eroge, or in our words, a hentai game. There are a couple of sex scenes in the original visual novel, which while incorporated into the story, still feel somewhat forced in, and they are so essential to the plot that all re-releases and adaptations of the game removed them, with the exception of the Fate's Day Night Heaven's Feel movie trilogy. By the way, they aren't that great either. G.R.R. Martin writes better sex scenes.
A shy smile, strong arms, clever fingers, and 2 sure swords. What more could any woman want? She would have married Quor, and gladly, but she was Lord Balin's daughter, and he was common-born, the grandson of a thrall. Too low-born for me to wet, but not too low for me to suck his cock. Drunk, smiling, she crawled beneath the furs, and took him in her mouth. Quor steered in his sleep, and after a moment he began to stiffen. By the time she had him hard again, he was awake and she was wet. Usher dropped the furs across her bare shoulders and mounted him, drawing him so deep inside her that she could not tell who had the cock and who had the cunt. This time the 2 of them reached their peak together.
Anyways, the visual novel was a pretty big hit in Japan, and 2006 Studio Dean adapted it as an anime, and while it has its weaknesses and wasn't a giant success, it still did well enough and served as an entry point for an international audience. For me, it was one of the first anime I actually bothered to watch in Japanese, so you could say that this show made me the otaku I am today. However, the adaptation didn't exactly tell the entire story. You see, Fate Night is a visual novel which offers 3 distinct routes. So you actually have 3 stories that complement each other. The first anime adaptation focused on the so-called Fate route, which focuses on Shiro's relationship with his servant Saber, who is one of my favorite heroines ever, by the way. But by adapting only one route, you can't capture the whole experience, even though the anime tried to incorporate story elements of the other routes as well, with mixed results. In 2010, Studio Dean adapted the second route, Unlimited Blade Works, which focuses on Shiro's relationship with the poster girl for Tsundere worldwide, Rin Tosaka. However, this time they didn't do it as a whole series, but rather as a movie. As a result, it captures even less of the experience than the show, and while the movie isn't terrible, it was more for fans who already know the plot. Not to mention that unlike the first adaptation, this movie became somewhat obsolete when the Unlimited Blade Works route was adapted as a TV show by Ufotable in 2014. But speaking of Ufotable, Fate Stay Night was always rather popular in Japan, but on the western end it was still somewhat obscure. Sure, the 2006 anime and fan translation of the visual novel attracted some western fans, but it wasn't exactly mainstream. However, this changed when Ufotable adapted Fate Zero as an anime. Fate Zero is a prequel light novel series written by none other than Gen Urobuchi. You might remember him from shows like Madoka Magica or Psychopaths. Fate Zero sets the tone for the Fate franchise today. As it was adapted from a light novel series and not a visual novel, the story was much better suited for an anime adaptation, and what a beautiful dark story it is. Complex characters combining with stunning visuals made it one of 2011 and 2012's most popular anime. People couldn't stop talking about it, until Sword Art Online premiered, that is. Anyway, Fate Zero turned the franchise into a worldwide phenomenon. And of course, this is not the end of it. Like I said earlier, the Unlimited Blade Works route was adapted by Ufotable in 2014, and this time around it was a pretty faithful adaptation with awesome animation that puts most action anime to shame. But unlike the first anime that tried to combine story elements of all three routes, this one just focuses on the Unlimited Blade Works path. Therefore, it has a couple of shortcomings, especially when you consider it a sequel to Fate Zero. Several plot points that were introduced in the prequel simply don't get a payoff in Unlimited Blade Works, and some characters get axed off without contributing much to the plot. So while this adaptation makes the Unlimited Blade Works movie obsolete, it's not exactly a replacement for the first anime if you want the full story but are too lazy to read the visual novel. And then there's of course the third route, Heaven's Feel. This one focuses on Shiro and his relationship with the shy Sakura. It's by far the darkest of the three story paths and my personal favorite. Like Fate Zero and Unlimited Blade Works, it was adapted by Ufotable, but this time around as a movie trilogy. As of writing the script, the third one hasn't released yet, but the first two movies were very faithful adaptations so far and overall pretty awesome, bumping the animation up again. They shifted a couple of scenes around and cut of course a few things to accommodate the running time of a movie, but it also elaborates on some interesting things to make up for it. I found the first two movies very enjoyable and I'm really hyped for the third one. Now, this is a core series. There are several spin-offs of course, but if you want to get into the Fate franchise, you should either start with one of the Fate Stay Night adaptations or Fate Zero. This is the only thing people can agree on. The right answer to this question is of course, read the visual novel, but this is understandably a bit too much for most casual fans. It just takes a long time and the first couple of hours drag on a bit. The core issue here is that Fate Zero is a prequel and therefore casually sports things that were major plot twist in Fate Stay Night. But since Fate Stay Night takes place after Fate Zero, it obviously spoils major plot points in Fate Zero. Now personally, I always consider this discussion somewhat stupid since Fate Zero was written as a prequel for people that are already familiar with the original storyline. Frankly, the point of entry is determined by one simple question. Do you want to bother with the 2006 anime? If yes, watch that one first. It's the first Fate anime that was released, it serves as a good introduction to the world and is the only one that doesn't assume that you are familiar with the franchise. It is also the only anime adaptation of the Fate route, and it is uncertain if we ever get a new one. If you don't want to bother with it, because it is admittedly a somewhat mediocre show with animation that didn't age that well, and also makes its main character look like a moron at times, watch Fate Zero first. The great benefit of Fate Zero is that it immediately delivers the good stuff, with a strong storyline that is easy to follow, even if you aren't familiar with the Fate franchise yet, and incredibly awesome animation. Unlimited Blade Works is a bit of a bad place to start, because that route is simply not written to be your first experience. It was meant to be consumed after the Fate route, but luckily Fate Zero manages to fill in the most important gaps if you don't bother with the 2006 anime. Well, and the Heaven's Feel movies are even worse in that regard, as they deliberately skip scenes in the beginning because it assumes that you at least watched Unlimited Blade Works. So there you have it. Watch the 2006 anime first if you want the complete experience, or Fate Zero if you want to jump straight to the good stuff. Well, there's also a third option. You can also give the manga a try. I haven't finished it yet, but I like it so far, as it is a rather faithful adaptation of the Fate route, which also mixes in some elements of Unlimited Blade Works later down the line. Besides that, we also have the pseudo-sequel, Fate Hollow Ataraxia, which will take another video to explain. And then there are a shitload of spin-offs, including several light novel series that haven't been released outside the US yet, and only God knows when they will be adapted as an anime. Here's the list, but to keep things comprehensible, I will only continue with with the most notable stuff that is actually available in the West as anime. First of all, there's Fate Collide Prisma Ilya, an alternate universe manga which flip-flops between magical girl parody and an actual intriguing storyline, which has been adapted in 4 anime seasons and 1 movie, and hopefully we get a 5th season once the manga concludes. I do think it's a really good show, but the amount of lowly fan service might turn you off. Then we have the Fate Extra series, which is about a Holy Grail War in the Matrix on the moon. No, seriously. It consists of 2 PSP games, only one of which has been released in the West, 2 Dynasty Warrior clones for the current generation of consoles, and an anime, Fate Extra Last and Core. Now this one is a bit difficult. You see, Fate Extra Last and Core at first glance appears like an adaptation of the original PSP game, but it is actually more like an alternate universe sequel, and the plot is almost incomprehensible unless you played the PSP game or are at least vaguely familiar with its story. But it was also animated by Shaft and is therefore like having an acid trip to watch. I think interesting is the best way to describe it. Next up we have Fate Apocrypha, which takes place in another alternate universe which tells the story of the Great Holy Grail War, where 2 teams of 7 masters fight each other. Pretty cool concept, but it is held back by some rather contrived writing and a main character that is as charismatic as a brick wall. The show is kinda diversive, but it also introduces several fan favorites. Probably most notable a certain walking meme. Probably the most comprehensive of all the spin-offs is, however, The Case Files of Lord Elmeloy II, a light novel series that takes a break from the entire Holy Grail War business and instead focuses on Waver Velvet, one of the main characters in Fate Zero, and have him solve magical mysteries. Sadly, the light novels were also never released outside of Japan, but it got an anime adaptation in 2019. Since it only adapts 1 story arc and they haven't announced a 2nd season yet, it feels kinda incomplete, and where its approach to mystery stories is a bit sloppy at points, but I personally think it's a very worthwhile show, which gives a lot of extra insight into the world of Fate. Another show I should probably mention is Carnival Phantasm, an anime that was produced to celebrate Type Moon's 10th anniversary. It's a comedy series featuring characters of both Fate and other Type Moon properties, mostly Tsukihime, and is more or less a self-parody. If you are a Fate fan, it's one of the most hilarious things you will ever watch. And last but not least, there's the Juggernaut, the all-consuming beast. Fate Grand Order, a free-to-play mobile gacha game. But not any free-to-play mobile gacha game, one of the most successful ever made. Really, the amount of money this game makes is ridiculous. It by far eclipses the popularity of the franchise it spawned from. I very much enjoy playing it myself, gonna do a video on that one later. The plot is about a master who travels through time to fix so-called singularities by summoning servants to aid them in battle. The prologue chapter has been adapted as an OVA, the 7th chapter, Babylona, has been adapted as a TV series which is currently airing, and then there are 2 upcoming movies based on the 6th chapter, and chances are that this particular entry of the franchise will spawn a couple of adaptations more, because have I mentioned how ridiculously successful this game is? Oh yeah, it also has an arcade and a VR spin-off, and that's basically it. Okay, there's also the extended Nazoverse consisting of Kara no Kyokai, Tsukihime and Melty Blood, but that's something we want to discuss another day. I hope you guys enjoyed this overview of the Fate franchise. I'm Tricky Fox, stay foxy.